Obtaining 10x rewards. Reincarnated into a novel as a side character. By winterdragon_1. Chapter 44. Well then, let's dig in. Crunch. She took a huge bite. In the very next instant, her mouth exploded in fire. Meow dash. Meow dash. Meow dash. She cried out in shock. The dish tasted extremely horrible and disgusting, not to mention it was too spicy. It was as if someone had directly poured lava inside her mouth. I am glad you enjoyed. Oliver replied in a happy tone as he slowly got up and left the whaling cat behind. After coming out in his courtyard, he looked at the trees and admired the scenery. He fell into thought. I can't understand one thing. He pondered about something that has been bugging him for a while. In his memories, the Mystic Purge clan has always been cruel and indifferent to everything around them. This same principle was also applied to raising the heirs of the clan as well. They only valued strength and did not even acknowledge the weak. If he, who had been born as a talentless child with no strength and potential, then why were they raising him? He felt quite conflicted about this. They had already appraised him to be worthless at his birth, but still decided to let him live, albeit in isolation, and bear the clan's name. This was a big deal. Assuming the name of one of the top clans was no joking matter. It was extremely serious as it defined your affiliations. Why were they acknowledging him as part of the clan, despite his weakness? Knowing his mother's cruel and maniac attitude, it was quite possible for her to dispose of him just after he was born. No one would have opposed her either. It would have been extremely simple and efficient. Although he was not provided any resources or privileges like other heirs, his overall life was much better and peaceful than the commoners. It was befitting that of someone from noble heritage. He had a whole isolated courtyard to himself, had multiple maids doing his chores, like cooking, washing, cleaning. Not only that, he also had a teacher who taught him regularly about academics and strategies of war. Is it because they pity me and wanted me to raise a strategist for the clan's future heirs? Or did they appraise my intellect level somehow after birth? He felt that only these were the reasons they would keep him alive. His clan was filled with cruel and psychotic bastards who wouldn't even show kindness to a newborn in war. They would gladly commit all sorts of war crimes to win. That's how they were. Or is there a deeper reason for this whole situation? He felt a bit anxious when he thought of this. Ophelia, his mother, in the novel was portrayed to be very manipulative and ambitious. Even after feeling the minimal of emotions, she understood human psychology too well and was thus an expert when it came to influencing others through her actions. She always kept everything under her control. She would prepare deliberate and long-term plans and slowly make everything flow according to it. He felt uneasy thinking that the only reason he was allowed to live and grow was to be used by her in one of her sinister plans. If this was the case, then he felt that he had made a correct decision by joining the Black Codex Federation earlier. He must become independent fast, although there was no guarantee that he would be completely free from her control if he left the clan and severed all ties with her. It was still reasonably safer if he did that. The world and its people are complex. I might not even realize before I get dragged into someone's scheme. He should be cautious of who he associates with and build his own strength first and foremost, before anything. Fortunately, he still had the backing of the Black Codex Federation, so even if he left the clan in the future, he could still be involved in world matters while also being safe. Oliver felt more inclined to believe that his existence was a part of Ophelia's greater future plan and the sole reason he was left alive and not bothered. But of course, he could not let her succeed in whatever it was that she was planning. Tap tap. 2 small knocks were made on the paper door of his room as he saw a feminine silhouette on the other side. Young master, may I come in? The soft voice of a woman sounded as he replied with a simple word. Enter. The paper door slid open and a woman dressed in maid clothing entered the room. In her hands, she was holding something long wrapped in a brown-colored cloth. He was calm as he saw his maid enter. He had ordered her to buy him something from the market earlier during the day, although he very rarely asked anything from the servants knowing his status. this time, however, he asked them. The thing she was holding was a rapier that he had asked one of the local blacksmiths in the clan market to prepare for him. It was when he had gone to the market to buy the smoke capsules and aphrodisiac to cause distractions among guards. He had also ordered for a rapier at that time that he could use to train and practice the sovereign strike of infinite freedom. He had paid for it beforehand and just asked the maid to visit the blacksmith and fetch it for him. He was initially going to go himself, but when he was informed of his mandatory participation in the hunt, he decided to give the clan hints about his strength. Naturally, he could not just keep hiding his strength and then suddenly stand out on the day of the hunting event. That would put him under more suspicion. So he had decided to let his clan believe that he had taken the path of a physical exorcist, training his strength and learning martial exorcism techniques. Being a physical exorcist was quite easier in general as compared to the other two, Aspera-based and tool-based. It was a known fact that a person with Chapter 45. Even a person with below-average Aspera talent level could eventually train physically daily and start on his path as a physical exorcist. The requirements for this type were quite minimal, and a large population of exorcists were physical exorcists. Oliver felt that this was an appropriate action from his side. The maids reported all his actions to the higher-ups, so naturally, such an anomaly in his daily actions would be reported quickly. This way, he would have to face less trouble once he reveals a portion of his strength. He knew there was no other choice than this. The clan elders and his mother were not stupid. They were all veteran exorcists and could discern his capabilities at a glance if he slipped out even slightly. At that moment, he wouldn't be able to handle the consequences for it, so he decided it was better to let them know beforehand that he was not entirely useless. Not to mention, he barely had any Aspera, and Nadia was not going to break through to become a rank 1 exorcist anytime soon, most probably. So even if they thoroughly sensed him, they would only find that he had slightly greater strength and nothing more. He unwrapped the brown cloth from the weapon anew, and a shiny rapier came into view. It had a silver body and a bluish handle to hold it. The rapier was beautifully designed and looked robust to some degree. He swung the rapier around and felt that it should be enough for him to freely practice the sovereign strike of infinite freedom daily. He felt that the rapier was just an extension of his hand as he moved the weapon very gracefully with slow movements. The maid looked at him in a trance as she felt that the rapier was moving very beautifully. It was as if an expert was making the weapon dance. She got out of her daze when he stopped the movements and put it down. "You did good, you can leave now," Oliver said to her as he folded his hands. The maid understood that he wanted to be left alone and quickly got up. "Understood, if the young master wants anything else in the future, please call for me," she told him in a professional tone, indicating that if he did something like this again, he should inform them first. Naturally, he didn't care what she meant or not. His purpose was fulfilled. He was now sure that soon his news would reach the ears of those who were interested. "I might even receive slightly better treatment as well if all goes well in the future." Oliver mused. Strength was everything after all. He took out his smartphone from a hidden box and looked up to see updates about the auction, and sure enough, the date has been released. It's in about a week from now. Finally, it's here. Underscore 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 underscore. For the rest of the following week, all he did was train his special eyes, martial techniques, or his water element. He had become quite proficient in using the 6 thoughtful steps of the spirits technique. The shape training method was indeed very useful for a beginner like him. He had been slowly increasing the number of shapes every day as he improved, and now he could easily cross 150 shapes without breaking a sweat. His speed and strength were quite good now, although it was not much in this world's standards. To him, who was once a normal person in an ordinary world, it was incredible. He has also been practicing Sovereign Strike of Infinite Freedom daily this whole week, and he had to admit although he felt familiar the more he practiced, the technique was quite tough to master. It was 10 times harder than Press of Liberty, so while its impact was tenfold stronger, all the other requirements were also harder. Well, at least I still have the experience from Nadia's training. As for his water element, the progress was slow, but it was there. He knew that unless he awakened a good Aspera talent, the speed would remain slow like this. The auction was today, and he was just getting ready to visit the market where it was going to be held. Zippy, I'll be going to the market, we'll probably be late, your food is on the table. Oliver shouted behind. The clan guardian has been docile ever since the previous incident, which made him satisfied. By now, he had gotten used to living with the cat, considering the fact that the cat also had intellect. He treated her as a person and thus prepared her food before leaving. He was carrying a bag behind his back which had the rapier he had purchased a week ago. Of course, the auction house would not allow him to bring any weapons inside, so he intended to leave it outside. He had brought it just in case some situation developed. Underscore 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 underscore. Zip. He opened his bag and took out a black summer cap and a plain white mask, which he quickly wore. The market was noisy today, considering the special day it was. Rich and influential people from various places had come to visit the clan today, in hopes of joining the auction. So the market was bustling with activities. Of course, this was entirely limited to the market. The place where the auction was going to be held was quiet, and multiple exorcists in uniforms were patrolling the area around. Oliver could spot multiple people in fancy coats and gowns entering the extravagant auction house. His features were concealed, and unless someone deliberately removed his cap and mask, they wouldn't easily recognize him. He went to the gates of the auction where he was stopped by the guards at the entrance who looked at him weirdly. After all, who wouldn't feel weird upon seeing a small boy in black, silk-made kimono with a weird full-face white mask and black summer cap coming to them? They were, however, professionals, and since there was no formal dress code specified, the guests were free to dress however they wished. Plus, all the people here were very powerful and influential. The guards wouldn't want to offend a powerful exorcist in disguise. Guest, please show the ticket and verify your identity. Chapter 46. Guest, please show the tickets and verify your identity. The guards pointed towards a screen where Oliver scanned his smartphone. The auction had issued tickets months ago, and only those with the tickets were allowed to enter. After successfully scanning the ticket, one of the guards politely pointed him towards a direction inside. Oliver was not too impressed by the scanning system. He had seen plenty in his previous life. These tickets had sensors embedded into them that would help authentication. Of course, there was a chance that someone would steal your ticket and impersonate you. There was no biometric information required to participate in the auction house to maintain their guests' privacy and background. If you let your ticket get stolen, then you are simply not worthy enough to enter the auction house. Not to mention, the person who stole the ticket should also have enough wealth to even dare to dream to bargain in the auction. Sir, please, this way. A woman called out to Oliver, who walked towards the woman in staff clothing. She handed him a white metallic plate with the number 69. She smiled and explained, Sir, this is your ID number until you leave the auction house. If you wish to bid, then simply raise this plate up or tap on it thrice. You will be allowed to bid the amount. He took the metallic ID plate with the number 69 and asked, Where can we store our belongings? He wanted to store his bag outside since he knew he wouldn't be allowed inside otherwise. The guards would look at every item the guests had brought along if they wished to bring it inside. For that, you can use one of the lockers for public use, or you can pay to get a private locker. The latter being more secure and spacious. He looked at her speechlessly. Even in the auction house, they were trying to make profits. He sighed as he realized the rich big shots would directly get themselves the private safe, but he decided otherwise. First of all, he didn't intend to waste money on the private safe, considering the public locker was just equally safer due to its location and the guards outside. Secondly, if there was an emergency, he could directly access his public safe without needing a middleman to get to the private safe. I'll take the public locker. Definitely, please follow me. After placing his bag inside the locker, he was finally ready. Let's begin. Underscore 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 underscore. The main hall was dark and spacious. There were multiple seats arranged in front of a huge stage. When Oliver reached the hall, there were already multiple people seated inside. Just as he stepped foot inside, his body felt a slight invisible pressure from all sides. He felt as if he was being pressed down by something invisible. He took a deep breath and slowly adjusted to the invisible pressure. He had already expected a room filled with strange and mysteriously powerful people to be like this. No sooner did he enter, he felt multiple gazes on him. In the dark, many exorcists were slightly curious about this new arrival with a strange mask and cap. The reason for their curiosity was simple: they were unable to feel his strength. Many openly sent Aspera waves to sense his level, but in the end were puzzled when they were unable to feel anything from him. Some had a strange expression as they felt that this mysterious boy was stronger than them, so they decisively withdrew their Aspera. Many followed the suite and withdrew their Aspera. It was a known knowledge that constantly trying to probe someone with Aspera was considered rude and offensive to the party, as it was akin to violating their privacy. And none of them wanted trouble with someone stronger than them. Oliver also realized this thanks to his deep knowledge about the culture and other stuff from the novel, but he could still feel some lingering gazes. He followed the direction, and his focus fell onto the second floor of the hall. There were many small balconies over there that were hidden by darkness. Literal darkness. It was evident that they were using devices to harness darkness element to provide the cover before the auction begins. What a privilege! He could himself sense that all the gazes that mostly still remained on him were from up there. Those balconies were attached to private rooms behind and were specially assigned to VIPs. It could be seen that even among such a powerful gathering, there were VIPs, which told about the strength and influence they had. He felt slightly annoyed by their persistent gazes. In the end, he directly used cosmic void gaze and started looking towards each balcony one by one where he felt the gazes from. With the cosmic void gaze, he saw all hidden details. The other party was as clear as an elephant in a crowd of humans. Sure enough, they are VIPs, each of them is dangerously strong. He felt goosebumps looking at the cluster of Aspera radiating from the individuals. It was wild and fierce, ready to claw at the enemies. All these people were definitely expert exorcists. There might be exorcists as high as rank 2 present today. This showed how precious items were going to be today. As Oliver looked at each person back with cosmic void gaze, he felt them swiftly retracting their gazes back. He was using the intimidation, albeit suppressing it significantly. He could not force too much or his energy will deplete quickly and he would become more vulnerable. It was how this world worked: unless you showed others your power, they would continue to bully you and think of you as a pushover. It did not mean that you have to directly jump into fights with others, but to show them that you are capable of countering them and handling them if necessary. Hiding his strength always would not favor him in any way. He was not a coward but a cautious person with his safety as his first and foremost priority. As he looked at them one by one, they all withdrew their senses. Satisfied, he took his seat among the many others. Naturally, he was not allowed to have a private chamber to himself since he was not actually that strong, nor was he a registered VIP in today's auction. It was just that he could intimidate others easily with cosmic void gaze, nothing more, nothing less. The VIPs who were all repelled by him earlier were stunned for a moment. They had been expecting him to be a distinguished individual like themselves, but in the end, they saw him taking the seat on the floor below among the normal guests. What did this mean? Did this mean that they were countered by someone weaker than them? Of course not. It simply meant that he was a hidden expert. Chapter 47. It simply meant that this person had a deep background and preferred to keep a low profile. He was most likely a hidden expert. Among the many people on the second floor was a particular balcony, and there was a woman with a very feminine and enticing silhouette sitting. She had great curves and was radiating no Aspera, just like Oliver. Even Oliver did not look at her direction since he had not felt a gaze from her earlier. The woman in the dark facepalmed herself as she let out a sigh. What is this little kid doing here? This woman was none other than Jenna Sullivan. And right now, she was contemplating about Oliver. Initially, she had come to this auction upon being invited by the clan and receiving some information about the various artifacts. There were going to be some special artifacts that she wanted to bid for. She arrived at the auction early, and out of nowhere, he also joined the auction hall. White mask, black cap, he couldn't look more suspicious. Although his get-up was SOSO for his level, she was able to recognize him easily. Why? Because this silly kid forgot to change his clothes. He had worn the exact same kimono he had worn when they had met. She shook her head. If someone had seen him that day, then they would easily recognize him. It was good that he was within his clan boundaries, so she didn't have to look out for him as a superior. The worst that could happen was punishment from the clan if he pulled any tricks. If he had done such a carelessness outside in the world where all sorts of individuals were rampant, they would not hesitate to behead him if he somehow offended them. Could he be any more stupid? She sighed. At least he was still wearing the wrap of quantum darkness he had taken from her last time. No. I won't get into his matters. She had no intentions to get involved with this witty brat at all. No Aspera, openly challenging people stronger than him, bluffing his way out. It was better not to get involved with him, or else she might also get dragged if he falls into trouble. She steeled her mind and looked at the stage where the auctioneer had finally arrived holding a microphone. The auctioneer was a young and attractive woman. She dressed boldly, and her makeup was not bad. This was all done to keep the audience interested. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. As you may all know, this is the yearly auction that takes place here around this time every year. The rules here are quite simple. Just like any other auction, if you wish to buy an item, simply raise your bid with the specified amount. She paused and looked at the audience before continuing, and of course, no disruptions will be tolerated. I am sure everyone experienced is already aware of this, but for the newcomers, do note that you're inside the boundaries of the Mystic Purge clan, so if you act out of order, then be prepared to deal with the consequences. Rest, you are all smart enough. Then without delay, let's begin the auction. She said in a cheerful voice as she pressed a button and lights became focused on the stage. A man dressed in coat and pants entered the stage with a metallic trolley. He swiftly placed a glass box on the table placed at the center of the stage. And our very first item is this moonstone pipe. An excellent choice if you're in need of peace or need enhanced focus. The starting bid will be starting from 400,000 Neden. 500,000. 900,000. 1,200,000. 500,000. People started bidding immediately, just as the auctioneer stopped. Oliver stroked his chin as he thought of the instrument. It could be said that the auction staff did not provide the details about the artifact. It was possible that the details would be disclosed after purchase, or that only some items will be described properly. During the auction, the item would only be introduced briefly. The rest depended on the ability of the bidder to discern the true value of the item and bid for it against others who recognized the item. If he had not guessed wrongly, the moonlight pipe was an artifact related to instrumental type, and probably has the ability to draw the moon's energy to provide a calming effect to the person using it. That's it. The item has been purchased by number 33 for 4 million Neden. You can collect your items after the auction. Congratulations. The auctioneer congratulated the person and moved on to the next item. The next item. It's called the Glow of the Slave, and is a purification tool which is highly effective against medium-ranking demons. It has been crafted by one of the senior blacksmiths from the Forging Association. The starting price will be 1 million Neden. 1,300,000. 1,400,000. 1,700,000. 1,950,000. 500,000. The bids were raised fiercely. None of the guests present wanted to miss an exorcism tool crafted by a senior forger from the Forging Association. Oliver was interested in the instrument but did not bid, he was waiting for something even better. Although these things were quite good, it was not something he wanted. The auction continued, and Oliver just waited. There were many great items, from precious herbs to mysterious weapons and artifacts. Nothing was lacking. He was even offered free refreshments as well. One more thing he noticed was that none of the people on the second floor had bid on anything yet, which meant that they probably either had similar thoughts as him or they had special advanced information about the items that were going to be displayed. We will now be taking a short break, and the phase 2 of the auction will take place afterwards. With that, some people slowly dispersed and left, while some stayed. It was clear that they knew the second phase would be for the big shots and bids would be very pricey, undoubtedly. So it was a waste of time to stay. He noticed that a good chunk of people on the lower floor had left and now it was quite sparse. The people on the upper floors and the balconies were still seated, obviously waiting for the second phase eagerly. He calmly rested his back against the chair and sighed. The true auction was about to start. The items were going to be terrifying. He was sure there would be excellent stuff that would make them drool. Chapter 48. Oliver was just drinking green tea served by a waitress when he suddenly stopped and frowned. For some time, he could not help but feel a discreet gaze on him from time to time. He was extremely annoyed. One would ask why he wouldn't just use cosmic void gaze, like before, and repel the person again. He also wanted to do that, but the problem was that the person who was looking at him from time to time was extremely clever and skilled. For him to be able to detect the gaze, he must use his own senses to find the direction, but the problem was that the person who was watching him knew of this, and thus was being extremely discreet. He tried many times, but could not spot where the gaze was coming from. His senses were unable to detect the direction of the person, and thus he felt annoyed. This person was way stronger than him and was deliberately concealing things. Fuck. Are you a pervert? Why are you peeping at me? He cursed internally as he felt the gaze probing him once again. He shook his head and took a deep breath. He must do something about it or else he would remain conscious about it throughout the auction. He did not understand why this person was getting so interested in him. Did he do something to provoke them? Or was it just plain curiosity of theirs? Nonetheless, he started to think of plans he could use to find the peeper. After thinking for a few minutes, he came up with a somewhat crude and brute approach. Since the person was so interested in him, he would let them watch him fully. At least, he would make them feel so. What he meant by that was that this was a part of his plan. His plan was simple. He was going to verify each balcony one by one until he spotted the peeper's place. It was definitely someone from the upper floor, his gut told him that. He would wait and secretly focus in the direction of each balcony, and if the person tries to peep at him, he would directly know who was doing it. Of course, there was a chance that the other party would realize what he was pulling, but he could not think of other ways that could work in this hall. He didn't intend to make a fuss here or gain attention. He could only try to be as discreet as he could so that the other party, who would be focused on him, won't notice. Soon he began executing his plan. One by one, he started filtering the people on the upper floor. His senses at the moment were heightened and he was picking up on any signals directed towards him. He could tell the person was an expert and he wouldn't know their location until they wanted him to. Should I really provoke such a person? Of course not, but their gaze is unsettling and annoying. I will just let them know that I can see them and see how it goes. Soon, he had filtered out most of the individuals. He could now somewhat tell where the person was, so instead of waiting for them to look at him, he directly looked at a particular balcony. He felt their eyes meet and the experts soon withdrew their gaze. He felt that he had implied his meaning and was satisfied that things didn't escalate for him. He once started sipping tea only to choke as he felt the person peep again. What the dash? He used cosmic void gaze and looked at the person directly, wanting to know who they were. No, wait, suppressing a huge amount of espers. I cannot mistake it. His eyes widened as he recognized the woman in the balcony. It's her. He could not help but exclaim in shock. He was able to easily recognize her. She was none other than Jenna. What's she doing here? He felt it was stupid to think that, considering her power and influence, it was natural that she would also be invited over to attend the auction. But what he could not understand was why in the world did she keep throwing him glances? He had been quite bothered by her constant probing and felt weird. Wait, could it be that she is a... He suddenly had a bad premonition. He assumed a dark possibility that he did not want to admit. He suddenly thought about his past interactions with her and made some conclusions. He was a child? Check. She was desperate for him to join the organization? Check. She was so desperate that she gave an artifact for free? Check. She had been constantly probing him secretly? Check. He was feeling weird? Check. Surely she's not into that sort of stuff, right? He hesitantly asked himself. She looked dignified and had a superior aura and beauty. She was also an extremely powerful exorcist. She shouldn't have such a dark side, right? He suddenly felt that things were making sense. Was she a trash who engaged into those activities? That's right. Oliver was now suspicious of her true intentions behind making him join the Black Codex Federation. He had no idea who she was from the novel, so it was possible that she was some erratic side character who liked to engage in such illegal activities. And he unknowingly became her target. It was possible that she was grooming him slowly and later ask for extreme stuff? It was likely that he might become her victim in the future as well. What other reason did she have to secretly look at him, peep on him, instead of boldly displaying her intent? She must have bad thoughts otherwise. No. He shook his head. He was being too paranoid and was drawing too many conclusions, but nonetheless, he still felt that Jenna was a suspicious person and he might become her victim if he was not careful enough. He weirdly glanced at her direction with a sympathetic gaze. Even after being such an exaggerated beauty, she still suffered from such mental disorders. What a pity. A healthy grown woman only to be like this?